Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Friday college football, basketball, baseball roundtable discussion. Matt Dean joins me right now from over in Memphis on the beautiful campus at Rhodes College. I got a full show in store for you today, and get right down to it. Say this, you can hear us live 6 days a week, www.sidelines.live. If you missed the show live, of course, go to our website about an hour after the show. And then 680thefan.com, the podcast park in Atlanta, and on radio stations like Sports Radio FM 104.7 in Cookeville, Tennessee, up on the Cumberland Plateau, and Kicks 96.3, Alexander City, Lake Martin. Beautiful 750 miles of shoreline on that beautiful lake coming up on its 100th birthday. This is pretty cool stuff. We have a lot we cover, but it's all college. We stay on sports. We don't talk politics and all that other stuff. We're your safe space, man. Come here for sports, red meat and potatoes. That's what we are. That's what Maury Gaston calls us. History, traditions, and heroes. And we're going to start off with Davis Babb, CEO of the original grassroots populist fundraising effort for sports. Also, he was at VMI, where my grandfather and his father all graduated from. Virginia Military Institute. That is hallowed ground in our family. I wish I'd have had the guts to go there. I don't know. That would have been fun. But anyway, my mom and my sisters went to Hollins, which is a little school up in Virginia. And they used to go over there, and my mom would watch the VMI band on Thursday or Friday afternoons on the parade grounds. There's nothing like it, folks, up there. That is heaven on earth right next to W&L's campus. We'll also have Tommy Kane over in Atlanta with the ACC Report. Tommy Kane, formerly with ACC Network and Fox Sports. He's there in Atlanta. And then in the second hour, Bo Carter checks in, longtime SID at Mississippi State in the Big 12 office for a long time, now on the National Football Foundation writer, Baseball Writers Association of America. Again, follow us on Twitter at sidelines_live. And batting in the leadoff position, Matt Dean. Let's get started with Davis Babb. And Davis, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to join us on Sidelines. Our big footprint is in the Southeast, and Clemson is one of those schools that's got a Sasquatch-sized footprint, man. And wanted to ask you about NIL and then traditional fundraising. You know, you've got the different programs, Tide Pride at Alabama, Tigers Unlimited at Auburn, but IPTAY in 1934 is where it all began, right during the Depression. And it has gotten stronger and stronger and stronger every year. But thanks for joining us, and tell us how that's working, if they're coexisting or if they're becoming one, or where are we going?
Well, great questions. Thanks so much for having me. I always love to be with you guys, and we're excited to talk all things IPTAY and now NIL. And you're exactly right. We have been around a long time and try to raise money for a lot of different things within athletics. We are now learning, as I think a lot of development organizations are, and to how to best partner with the various collectives that have been created around the country to deal with and meet the needs and the demands, I guess you could say, of the environment we're in now. I think that for us, we've been really working hard with our athletic department, with our university, with compliance, our legal counsel, just to try to figure out how we can best serve the need while obviously staying completely abreast of all the issues that we've got to be aware of. Compliance is a huge thing. And so what's happened here is we've had 2 or 3 different collectives that have been created. One is called Tiger Impact. And what our student athletes are doing there is they're representing nonprofit organizations here in the upstate around Clemson and Columbia and Greenville. And so you'd have Student Athlete X becomes a spokesperson for, I'm fill in the blank, Habitat for Humanity, Boys and Girls Club, Meals on Wheels, whatever the case may be. And they would make appearances there. They would make social media posts. And their goal would be to bring awareness in the community about the needs of the nonprofit, and hopefully utilize their celebrity, if you will, to help those organizations be stronger. And then they are compensated for that. And I think that's been good. We've got all 21 sports represented. Obviously, football, basketball have probably had more, but it's really important, and very necessary. And I think this is something schools are dealing with too. The rank and file fan may say, "Well, I want to help football, basketball," but we've got more women's sports than we do men, and we're really dedicated to doing things in this space for women. It could be women's gymnasts, it could be women's lacrosse competitors, basketball, golfers, whatever. And so that's one collective. Another collective is called Dear Old Clemson, and it's focused more on events and appearances at business locations and autograph signings and things like that, where people come in, they may have bring items in to be autographed, and it's kind of a pay for play kind of thing, and pictures with these young folks. And so you have those two alive and well. I think what we're trying to do is make sure that the giving to the NIL is considered in addition to what folks are already doing for IPTAY and not in place of, because we are the largest revenue provider to our athletic program, and we've got to stay strong, solvent, and we just got to be strong for the future. And so we're trying to help donors who are interested with referrals to the two collectives. We're trying to be proponents of it. I do think that nationally, everybody in our chair is trying to figure out, is the day coming where these things need to be falling under the purview of the athletic departments and the fundraising organizations? And I think the answer is yes. Right now, though, last point I'll make is right now we're not really allowed to raise the money and then allocate the money from a compliance standpoint. You can't have fundraising organizations raising the money and deciding who's going to get the money. That's not a healthy thing. So there's an arm's length kind of right there. But I think the day's coming, compliance will get more and more involved, and it's just new ground for everybody, and we're just trying to be up to speed. So
No, that's a great. You laid out what's going on, lay the case out brilliantly. And Matt Dean and I, and on this show every day, we're talking to people a lot about NIL and the portal. And Matt, you heard what Davis Babb said. He was at VMI for 13 years. You were AD there before you came to Clemson, but that's a state about 5 million people and growing in South Carolina, Davis.
that's correct.
Yeah. So there's a lot of industry. There's a lot of money there, and you're conveniently located in the middle of everywhere. How far are you from Charlotte?
Right. We're 120 miles, and we're about another 120, 150 from Atlanta. We're in a hot location. You got a lot of growth. Seriously, this sounds like a commerce. We got people moving to South Carolina from all over the place, and industry, BMW, Michelin, Volvo. We got manufacturing plants moving in. It's and I'll say this real quick. Here's the other thing. There's another dynamic, y'all, and here it is. We still have some high profile athletes that, look, they have parental. They now are able to have representatives out there kind of checking the marketplace. And so, you could have companies. We had a student athlete a year or so ago with a big deal with Bojangles, and one with Dr. Pepper, where they negotiated that separate from any collective or the university. So the high profile guys, and here's what's happened in the first year. We're being told this: student athletes, their parents, whether they have agents and representatives, they're all extremely savvy. They now know the questions to ask. They now know how to compare places. And what we don't want to do is we want to be really competitive in the NIL space, but we are not going to be the ones that are going to be trying who we are. That's not how we've been put together. And so we're going to be competitive in the space because we need to, but we are going to be controlled. And we've seen some tough stories around the country where people have promised young kids money, couldn't come up with the money. It's embarrassing. Got
Yeah.
compliance investigations in some places. That's not who we are. And so you got to find a balance here so we just don't lose our way.
Yeah, I agree. Matt Dean jumping here with Davis Babb, CEO of IPTAY, America's first grassroots populist college sports athletics fundraising team. Ain't nothing like it nowhere.
I have always been a fan afar from Clemson. You know, I grew up in the Midwest. When I moved to Memphis in 1992, one of my neighbors played on, I think, Danny Ford's national championship team, and he took me to Clemson to a Florida State game. This is back in the 90s.
Yeah,
okay. And I was just amazed. You know, the football program speaks for itself. There's no question. But just the fan base and the game day experience. And I had a chance to go back. My son worked for Texas A&M for a few years, and we made the trip to watch the Aggies play there a few years ago. And, you know, Clemson, that was the year that I think Trevor Lawrence, either his junior or senior year, maybe his sophomore year, because I think.
That's right.
And
that's right.
They beat us 24-10. I'll never forget leaving the stadium, Rob. The fans were like, y'all played great. Good luck in your season. You had a great team. I just thought, I've been in some other SEC venues where I've been kind of mortified leaving the stadium. I couldn't even I couldn't even wear my own gear in the stadium. Yeah. But like what Davis is saying, it does not surprise me that they are committed towards the inclusivity side of doing things right on the NIL. And what I mean by that is we're talking about women athletes and women's sports at the top of, you know, their plan. And of course, they're going to have some higher profile athletes from some certain sports that may get a bigger deal. But, you know, we've heard in the media, you know, obviously it's a very hot topic, but sometimes when Dabo talks about NIL, he gets a little emotional, it seems like. So just a big fan, Davis, with what you're doing there. A huge fan of the program, and just I think you're doing it right.
Yeah, I echo what Matt's saying. And Davis, that's the thing. Dabo Swinney has said, you know, he's got a culture, and Clemson's got a culture, and I call it the Heisman trilogy: Auburn, Georgia Tech, and Clemson. And a lot of similarities between Auburn and Clemson. And I filled out my three choices for college. My blood was Auburn, orange, and blue, and then it was Clemson and Georgia. Those are the three schools because of all the connections. If it wasn't Auburn, there were a lot of connections to Auburn at those schools. And I've been to Clemson, like Matt. It's an incredible place. And I just, Davis, got to ask you, when you go out fundraising, what are those discussions like, without naming names, which we would never do? But I've got friends with Tigers Unlimited at Auburn, and I know what that job is like and what they're dealing with. But I think college athletics is owned by the fans, and we can't let 17 and 18-year-old kids. That deal down at Florida, was, and we talked to Buddy Martin and Franz Beard, GatorbaitMedia.com, on this show every week. That was a figure thrown out there, I think, by his people, right, not by Florida. And I think Florida called his bluff, and he went to Arizona State. And I'll be surprised if he gets, you know, 200,000 or 300,000 instead of 13.6 million. That's crazy, isn't it?
Well, I think it's just so excessive, and I understand we're in a deregulated era right now, and I think my political comment here would be, it's unfortunate that the governing body of our organization or of our association decided not to try to legislate it. They put it on to each of the 50 states, and when you do that, then you have competitive inequality, you have competition.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a lot of, you put money, sports, ego, and pride together, and that's a mixture for issues. And so I think that what we're trying to do is bring some sanity back to it. Coach Sweeney has said we've been very fortunate here, pre-NIL and now during it, where we've had kids decide to stay here for a fifth year, as opposed to enter the portal or jump after some money for 1 year somewhere else. It's like a 1 year free agent deal. And I think so the culture has been really strong. But when you think about it, somebody right now that's 15 years old that's watching all this, what do they bring to the table when the recruiting cycle heats up? And here's the other thing. We've been told this: 95+% probably of dollars being given to collectives is from a very, very small number of people.
Yeah.
And because it's not something that yet has become grassroots, but we're going to have to deal with this and offer the opportunity for the young people to take the name, image, and likeness and gain from it. I think that's great. I think we just have to also remember that the university has to remain strong for all of this to work. And there's room for everything. So when we go out, we're talking to people about facility projects, scholarship needs, the need for endowment, all the things we're doing. And then we're going to have to do more though to talk about NIL and the fact that because
Davis, hold those thoughts. We got to take a quick commercial break. I want to come back because you're going right down the path. And I've got a lot of questions that I know Matt does. We'll be right back. Davis Babb, CEO, IPTAY Clemson, after this commercial message.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Davis Babb, CEO of IPTAY Clemson, America's first grassroots fundraising college sports and athletics endeavor. And it's just nothing like it nowhere. But they say about those ribs at Dreamland, same thing. And they're right about that. There is nothing like them nowhere. The sauce is really good. But Matt Dean and I and everybody, I'm getting a lot of texts from people saying, I like what Davis Babb is saying. They seem to have separated the two. And here's a question, and it's really what you were on a path to saying is, where are we going to go? Where do you think we're going to end up?
Well, my feeling is what I was going to say, and I'm sorry I was long-winded there.
No, you're not at all. That's what you're here for.
The other dynamic is the transfer portal, and when you mix transfer portal, NIL, and just the world that we're in college athletics, it just lends itself to a little bit more instability, and you end up with coaches having to, in some cases, re-recruit their roster, depending on what kind of kids you recruit. So culture is so important that you're recruiting the right kids into the program, so this doesn't become what you're spending all your time on and retaining kids. And so, but where I think, to me, I think it's just a personal opinion. I think we're going to be strongest when we can bring all the NIL function under one roof. Thereby, the Clemsons of the world could go out on every call, make a visit with a donor and talk about all the things we do. And then right now, what we need to do is refer them to collectives. That's fine. But I think the day's coming when we could raise the money. It could be considered a dollar that's coming into the IPTAY bucket, if you will.
Yeah.
Could
Yeah.
we give them charitable credit? Could we give them athletic points for their giving? Because let's face it, a lot of people say, look, I love NIL, but what I love is athletic department X. I want to make sure that my dollars first go there. So if we can combine those, put it under one roof, then I think the challenge right now is all that sounds good until you get to the point of who's deciding how much each athlete gets, what's the criteria, who measures that, who evaluates that. Right now these kids are signing contracts and there's a measurement. They have to perform community related duties in order to be paid. So I think what we're going to see is we might have arms of IPTAY in the future. Maybe it's a compliance arm or it's an allocation arm where we say, here's the money, here's X number of dollars, and we're going to pass it off to another entity within the university that's going to distribute the money. Because we just can't, compliance wise, be the fundraiser and the giver of money. That also opens yourself up to a lot of question. It's like you have to open your books up and tell people what's going on. So I think we've just got to bring it more in-house. I just really do. And I think that would be better for everybody.
Yeah. Well, that's why there's what they call Chinese firewalls in the investment banking business and the securities business. There's lots of separation, a lot of differences. Matt Dean, jump in here, man. This is great insight.
Davis, I had a question for you. And, my background is I've been in small college athletics for the last 3 decades, former AD, former basketball coach. The thing I'm curious about is the student athlete side of this that no one talks about. We worry about compliance with the NCAA, but what about compliance with the IRS? Who's giving these student athletes advice on finding accountants to help them make sure they declare some of their earnings from some of these, collectives or deals, what have you? Are you guys, with your organization, do you provide some of that counsel as well? Or how does that work with Clemson? I'm curious your take on how it works in most other places.
Yes. You had a great point. We have staff members that have been hired in fall. We're going to have them in basketball and some Olympic sports to do just what you described. So more in a counseling standpoint about helping these young people and their families understand what it is and what it is not. And so financial literacy, which is something that athletic departments do a lot with student athletes anyway, is now even more important because now these young people are being presented with real money that maybe they've never seen before. So they've got to understand taxes. They've got to understand what April 15th means now, to them as a school student. And it's not just spring break, it's like, make sure your taxes are in. And it's like, you have to, they're growing up faster now. They're more savvy. And, and think about this. If you're a hot shot quarterback and you have an agent that says, in 2 years, this kid's going to go number, 10 in the draft. So in order for me to get favor with him as a college student, I need to go represent him as an NIL product, start helping him make a little money as a college student, because I want to be his guy when he goes into the draft. And so you've got all so coaches have to try to surround these kids with quality and mentors, but they do. So we're providing more educational in-house support. We have a branding institute within football, which helps them develop their brand with photos, with social media lessons and so forth, how to position themselves. So we're trying to help them. We can't do it for them, but we can help them.
Go ahead, Rob. I'm sorry.
No, Matt, finish up.
No, I just wanted to finish up by saying I think that's outstanding, and you're right. There is a lot of financial literacy that's now come to the surface at many schools, many Power Fives in particular. I think it's probably interesting, though. There are some folks out there operating a little bit in the gray area in that regard, and some student athletes still fall through the cracks in that. But I think the positive for me is you're educating student athletes on life a lot earlier, in certain regards, right? And I think it's just such a huge advantage, because so many times we hear the stories where a student athlete would leave a place early, not get a degree, get the big contract, and 4 or 5 years later they're done financially, right? And this just has to give them perspective on managing their money at a lot earlier time in their life. Yeah. It's not like just a student employment check that some kids got in the old days. That was their deal. Now they got some real money.
You're exactly right. Exactly right.
Davis, that's another thing is, again, if you've got a 17, 18-year-old kid getting $800,000 check up front, that's going to mess with his head. I mean, I'm a financial advisor in wealth management. I'm in my 32nd year of doing it, and in over 1,000 meetings, just on estate planning with wealthy individuals, families, trust. We've never once had them give the money out up front. I mean, they put some serious teeth in, incentive-based trusts, which, as you know, in your position, for every dollar you earn from your job, you get X number of dollars from the trust, or the age banded where it's 25, 30, and 35. What about, Davis? We're about to wrap up. I know you've got a big meeting, but have you thought about my idea of a pension for these student athletes? Where, look, I'm all about capitalism, okay? But you think about if you watch what Nick Saban does, he doesn't do anything without thinking it through clearly. He fired a pretty serious shot over the bow when a current player, I think, on the Alabama roster wanted a big chunk of NIL money to come back. And then there was also, hey, can you also get our family member through the law school there? Nick Saban said, don't let the door hit you on the bass on the way out. Could you imagine going to the commandant at Virginia Military Institute and trying to, you know what I'm talking about?
Wow.
By the way, Davis,
I know.
It's think about the science and mathematics building at VMI. You have to know those words that are engraved into the stone there. You strain when you walk around campus. You know all that. Cadet Chapel.
That's right.
I've been there so many times. I love it. But you think about this. We gotta use our heads here.
Well, I tell you, and just I'll say this: I have been so blessed. I have been able to. I'm an Appalachian State graduate, and I've had stops along the way at Furman, VMI, TCU, and Clemson. And what this has afforded me is an opportunity to see our business, if you will, from different levels, different budgets, different people, and it has been such a great ride. But I have seen it change so much. But you're right, young people are young people, and when you start promising dollars, look, they come in, some of them as highly touted, with great expectations. You put the money in front of them. Then you have, are there locker room issues when you got a handful of people making money and a handful not? Do the fans become tougher on kids who are making money because now, hey, you're earning money, dude. You need to be doing a whole lot more than you are. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to this, frankly, mental health and all the other stuff. Yeah. I just don't even think we've touched on it. And I mean, I get it, and it was time to do it, but we've got to put some guardrails on it. They just started to put guardrails on the portal. I think they're going to put more guardrails on NIL, and I really do think over time we are going to be far better going through this learning period. We've been bumped and bruised a little bit. We were learning our way, but I think it's going to be good, and it's just going to have a lot of personal integrity to keep it right.
Yeah. Davis, look, I know you got a big day ahead of you. Let's do this again in a couple of weeks, because you're able to shed on the spotlight on this stuff, insight that we're not going to get anywhere else, because Tommy Kane's on with us now over in Atlanta. Tommy's classic story, the American dream, kid that grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina, NC State Wolfpack fan from birth, walks on, is a student manager there at NC State in 1993. And the day before they were playing Duke, the coach throws him a jersey, Les Robinson, and says, Kane, you're playing tomorrow. What? He goes, we're down a man. You got to play. Tommy stepped in. He never forgot that. But that's what a student athlete is. He didn't do it for money. He did it for love. And we need more Tommy Kanes. We need more Davis Babbs and Matt Dean, who coached women's basketball at Rhodes for 16 years. That's what we love. When people do things just for money, when they give to get instead of just give to give out of the goodness of their heart, that's when we got problems. But Davis, tell people how they can follow you and support you. And did you know my friend Tim Horton, by the way, when he was coaching with Jerry Moore at Appalachian State?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Tell him hello. I would just say go to clemsontigers.com/IPTAY, and you'll also be able to there learn all about us, what we do, where the money goes that we raise, all about NIL, just all about the total student athlete experience. So we'd love for you to come. Y'all want to come visit now? I'd love to have you and host you for a football game.
We're going to do it. Clemson is as Tommy has run down the hill. Tommy, tell him what you did on ACC Network real quick.
Davis, good to meet you. Yeah, I used to host a show called ACC Road Trip, and we spent a couple of days there at Death Valley and got permission to rub the rock and run down the hill with the team as they took the field. And it was probably one of the coolest things I've ever done in my career. It was pretty awesome. Yeah. And my wife is a Clemson grad. She was an all ACC rower for a couple of years at Clemson. So Clemson's near and dear to my heart, as not quite to the Wolfpack level, but it's close.
Davis. Hey,
Davis,
I could not hear his running down the hill story, but
tell him that again, Tommy. I want him to hear
Davis, I used to host a show for the ACC Network called ACC Road Trip, and we got permission to run down the hill with the Tigers as they took the field, and it was with my camera guy and myself running down the hill.
I just couldn't hear you. My apologies. I couldn't hear his story.
Yeah, he was talking about when he did a show with ACC Network called ACC Road Trip, running down the hill there and rubbing the rock there at Frank Howard Field, getting to do that. And his wife is a Clemson grad as well.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Damn, Davis, listen, man, I think the connection must be off a little bit. We're just glad we have communication over here in Park in Arkansas. We had 4 straight days of ice. But anyway, let's do this again soon. And thank you for taking time to join us. And go Tigers.
Go Tigers. Always appreciate y'all having us on. Y'all have a blessed day. All right.
You do too. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Tommy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Tommy, I think we lost the connection there. But again, that's right. You've got a Clemson grad for your wife. And my wife, I remarried, is a Tennessee Vol for life. And Mallory is an Alabama grad. My other 3 kids are certainly, orange and blue all the way, Auburn. But that's what makes this stuff fun, isn't it? You wake up in the morning. Matt's an Iowa fan from out in the Midwest and been over here at Rhodes College for 31 years, coaching basketball as an AD, associate AD. Everywhere you go, just like what Davis said, he's been at TCU, Furman. I think he was at VMI 13 years as the athletic director, and he's an App State grad. That's something I've learned is these coaches on game day, they look like they want to tear each other's heads off, but after the game, they're hugging and having fun, and the families all know each other. And as we know in today's world, Matt and Tommy, you could be on the same staff 6 weeks from now.
That's right.
That's kind of where we are.
Or you could be working for one guy as the head coach, and then a year later you could be the head coach and he could be working for you. So you just that's why I think in that business, I think it's really important not to ever burn bridges with anybody, because you never know how they're going to come back and be your boss someday or whatever. It's crazy.
No, it is. It is. Tommy, Matt is a basketball junkie. Yeah. I love college basketball. And of course you talk about NBA because these guys go up there and they from college, we watch them. But let's get started. We got about a minute, a little bit over a minute before we go to the break. But where are we in the ACC? Let's get started. As the conference last year had 3 teams in the Elite 8. This year, how are they going to fare in your prediction?
I mean, it's your guess is as good as mine right now. I mean, Virginia, I think you're going to probably have in the mix at the end for sure. They're playing as well as anybody in the country right now. And your iconic teams of Duke and North Carolina, are middle of the pack in the ACC, and they're neither one of them are showing the signs of, wow, they could be, there at the end last year. Now, granted, North Carolina made that incredible run to the finals last year with Hubert Davis as the first-year coach, but I don't see that this year. I just don't. I think there's some chemistry issues on the team a little bit. There's a couple of other issues there, I think. But and Duke is still learning under Coach Shire as far as how to get their chemistry together and whatnot. So I think you're looking at Virginia as the number one team. Clemson has played well, but they just lost a terrible loss to Boston College this past week. And I looked at their schedule. They've played some good teams, including NC State in the mix there they beat, but they haven't really played a lot of really.
Tommy, hold those thoughts. We're going to take a break. We come back because Matt and I both have a lot of questions. But ACC rundown with Tommy Kane after this.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn. Just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Tommy Kane, keep going. You were on a roll about where the ACC basketball is going right now.
Yeah, I just like I said, I mean, if you go around the country, if you talk about ACC basketball, the first two schools that are going to come to everybody's lips are Duke and North Carolina. It just has been for the last couple of decades, as we all know. But right now, both those teams are struggling, and so it's maybe a new era. We'll see. I mean, Virginia's playing well again. Like I said, they're probably the hottest team in the country. I think they've got 7 straight wins. NC State's playing really well now. They went 6-1 in the month of January, and they're hot right now. And they got Georgia Tech this weekend. And good gracious, Georgia Tech! I think Matt, I think your team at Rhodes there could probably beat Georgia Tech right now. I mean, Georgia Tech is just struggling. They can't even score the basketball at all. I mean, putting up like 40 points a game, it's just terrible. I don't know how much longer the coach will be around down here, but we'll see. Josh Pazner, but
yeah.
Who knows? But they're struggling. But so the ACC, I think, is up for grabs. The ACC tournament this year, I think, is going to be very interesting in itself. That used to be the marquee thing in the Southeast, as you guys all well know, and it still is pretty much in the state of North Carolina and around there. But normally you go into that thing and you're like, you got the number 2, number 5, and number 6 team in the country playing in your tournament. You don't have that now. You got Virginia up in the top, but other than that, I don't know. So I think it's wide open this year. The ACC tournament, I think, is going to be you could see somebody holding that trophy at the end that hasn't held it in a long time. So
yeah, I mean that, of course, if you've seen that documentary on ACC Network about the ACC tournament, that is, I would say, holy grail material.
Yeah.
That is an incredible. Matt, jump in here with Tommy Kane.
Well, Tommy, it's good to see you. This is the first time I've been on the show with you together. I grew up in the Midwest, but one of my great memories was in when Coach Valvano, his team won the national championship on that, put back at the buzzer in Albuquerque against Phi Slamma Jamma. Right. Ironically, when I went to college, I was a student manager myself.
Nice.
And our head coach at Drake was an assistant from that team named Tom Abadamarco. He was the assistant to Valvano.
Yeah,
so
I know.
I worked as a video manager for Abadamarco. There's some stories I can't tell on radio about Tom. Pretty intense guy. But It's crazy when you were running down the ACC. I pulled up the standings, and I just can't believe that you're right. Duke and North Carolina are both in the middle of the pack, and then I see a team like Pitt, third at 9-3. Now we don't talk about Pitt at all nationally, for basketball.
Sure,
but like going to the ACC tournament, we're going to see. Virginia's just a staple. When I was coaching basketball, Tony Bennett's dad, Dick Bennett, was the gold standard for defensive drills. When you want to become better as a man defense, you look to Dick Bennett and his philosophies. A lot of help and recover drills, denial situations. But like Virginia's going to be there regardless what. Virginia's a team that could find a way to make it to the Final Four. But I do think there'll be it wouldn't shock me if we have two teams in the final of the ACC tournament. And I've watched the Wolfpack play a little bit this year. They're 8-4. They've had some really good moments. And, I think we're in an era of college basketball where there's really not one great team out of the whole deal. Even though some teams have really good moments, I can tell you, I believe there's 10, 15 teams that can make it to that final weekend. And Virginia, I would put in that class. Now, the guy I never undervalue is I think the Miami guy. He's coaching way past Social Security. Larragana, I think his name is.
Jim Larranaga, yeah.
Larranaga. Unbelievable run last year. Those kids play so hard for him, and they're still, I think, 8-4 in the league, Tommy. So,
yeah,
I mean, they're another team I always kind of keep my eye on. They're in the top 25, I think, and you just never know about Miami. But I was just shocked when I saw that Duke and North Carolina were below some of the schools we just mentioned.
Yeah, both of them standing to 7-4, and they play each other this weekend. So one of them's going to go to 7-5, and one of them's going to go 8-4. And so, but both of them out of the top 25 and have been for a while. It's just not the norm. And Pitt going into Chapel Hill into the Dean Dome last week and winning with Jeff Capel at the helm and his brother Jason Capel, who played in North Carolina, sitting as an assistant coach. Caused a little bit of controversy at the end of the game with some of the responses and stuff that went around on Twitter. But, that was a great win for Pitt. And you're right. Capel has got Pitt playing well right now. They play hard. And, I think what you hit the nail on the head, though, Matt, is like the teams that play really good, hard-nosed defense are never out of it. And when it comes to March, if your team is on a roll and they're playing good defense, you can make a good run. And that's what Miami did it a couple of years ago. You mentioned about it's what Virginia hung their hat on when they won the national championship. It was just they were going to shut you down on defense. And one of the things, and I'm biased here because I've watched the NC State play a lot, but I watched the NC State Florida State game the other night, and it was the best first half of team defense and man-to-man defense that I've seen a team play in years. I mean, Florida State couldn't breathe. I mean, at one point in time, we were up 30 points. It was like 40-10 in the first half, and Florida State couldn't get a shot off. It wasn't because they were missing like wide open shots. They could not get a good look. And so I think that's the key at this time of the year when you get going in late February and early March is team defense and just buying in. And the other thing that's so interesting to me, and they talked about in the broadcast the other night, and I think it's fascinating. We all know it, but you got to really realize it. It's like most of these big colleges nowadays are putting together kids that haven't played together because they all transferred in.
Yeah.
So I think what the key is, what you're looking at here is you're looking at like the Kevin Keats of the world and the coaches that have to really go in and build chemistry quick and build a team camaraderie that really makes you carry on to February and March. And if you don't get that early on, I think, and you don't have that family love feel in a basketball team, everybody wants pulling for each other, I think you're going to struggle because you're getting a lot of veteran guys coming from other schools that have played 2 or 3 years here. They're in their 5th or 6th year playing basketball, and they're all coming together. You've got to get them to buy in, and I think that's the key. The coaches that can get the kids to buy in this time of the year and are really like in that groove of wanting to win and play together, those are the teams that are going to be successful.
True.
Yeah, and Matt, yesterday when we were talking, and John Hartwell, Tommy, about Oscar Tshiebwe, his numbers sometimes he'll have 24 points and 23 rebounds. And one of y'all made the reference and comment that, go back 20, 30 years ago, there were 35 or 40 guys like that in college basketball. Now there are just literally a handful. And if you've got a guy, and Tommy, Jason Caldwell inside the Auburn Tigers was talking about Janai Broome and Dylan Cardwell, 2 big men at Auburn who kind of have that old school, the hook shot and play that old game. He said it's good because not many people know how to defend it. So if you're different and you reference playing defense, I mean, it's so hard to get kids today to buy in to play defense. I loved watching Nolan Richardson's 40 minutes of hell.
40 minutes of hell, they'd get after him, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and because of that, they may not be the most talented team or whatever, but man, when you played them, you kind of dreaded it. Like, God, man, these guys are going to just wear us out. Like that guy that sits next to you at the game with the big number 1 foam finger that just won't shut up, even when his team's down 3 touchdowns with 3 seconds left. You're like, God, but that's what you got to have.
Well, I think you're exactly right. I know Matt can talk to this with his years of coaching experience, but I used to coach a long time here in Atlanta for high school basketball as a hobby, and one of the things we used to always harp on when we played, on defense was to try to make the other team uncomfortable, get them out of their comfort zone, and that 40 minutes of hell did that. I mean, it took you full court press the whole time. As soon as that one group got tired, the next group came in off the bench and they were going right at you. And it took you out of your comfort zone. And as a coach in college basketball, strategy for every game has got to be a little different to get that other team out of their comfort zone. I remember with Coach Valvano when I was there, I mean, we would run the craziest junk defenses. I think I've told you the story before, Rob, but we were playing Clemson and they had Eldon Campbell and Dale Davis, the Twin Towers of Clemson, right? 2 huge guys going to NBA and have great careers. And Eldon Campbell was just dominant at the time. And so Valvano took our point guard, Chris Corciani, 6'1", stocky white kid, was all-American player, and made him guard Eldon Campbell. And what he did, he just face guarded him. He literally put his face into the guy's chest, and wherever he ran with him. So it became like a gnat. And Eldon Campbell got so frustrated with him, took him out of his comfort zone. He started smacking away at Corciani and knocking him away and pushing whatever. And he got in foul trouble, and he couldn't even play almost the whole second half. And it worked. It worked perfectly. It was a genius move that took that player out of his comfort zone. When you have a 7-foot guy being guarded by a 6'1" slow white kid, so but that's what you got to do. And Matt, I'm sure will tell you, like, you try to get the other team out of their comfort zone.
Yeah. It's funny, Tommy, you say that because when I was a video manager for Babb, Coach Valvano's assistant at Drake, and this is back, late 80s, after the national championship. Babb was at Lamar. He goes to my alma mater, Drake. So I'm watching, and he's running this triangle and 2 stuff, and I'm like, man, what the heck are you doing? But it does show, it throws people off. So fast forward, the last championship I coached for our team at Rhodes, we played triangle and 2 for 40 minutes, and we frustrated the heck out of that team. I mean, they had 12 points in the first half, and they never really made the adjustment. And I think, there's so many different ways to play defense, and that's why sometimes I get frustrated when I watch teams that won't, like, if you watch Calipari and Rick Barnes, they hate playing anything but man-to-man. They hate it. Right. And I'm like, there's just sometimes, guys, you have to do something different. Come out of a timeout with a matchup zone or whatever, okay? Just
shake it up,
for a couple possessions. And I think that's the brilliance of some of the older coaches. And another thing, Tommy, we've done, you touched on it a little bit, we've devalued post play. So, Rob, going back to your point about Oscar at Kentucky, there's probably not even 5 players like him, let alone statistically near him, right? I know Zach Edney at Purdue is, I think he's 7'4". I'm not sure what he is, but he's a really tough dude to guard. But, like, one of the things people forget about post play, it's basically it's a math equation. When you go block to block versus going from arc to arc, there's a lot difference in your sprint for a course of a 40-minute game. A really good post player has a hard time playing over 25 minutes if they are playing properly. Yeah. And you don't see many posts in the NBA anymore. I mean, I used to love Olajuwon. You go back historically, the Wilt Chamberlains, the Bill Russells, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. We don't have a post player like that in the NBA right now because we've changed the game. Everyone has fallen in love with the three-point shot, and I get it. 3 is greater than 2. One of my philosophies in coaching was we are going to defend the arc. You are not going to get good looks from the arc. That puts a lot of pressure on other things when you do defensively. But, man, the game has changed so much, but still the best game out there. There's no doubt.
Yeah, no, but I agree with you, Matt. The post game, the feed it into the post, let the big man eat and kick it out or do whatever is just a lost art. But I tell you what, and again, I'm going back to my Wolfpack because I watch them all the time, but they got a kid there named DJ Burns, who was the Southern Conference Player of the Year at Wofford, and he transferred in to play with us. And he's a big 6'8" kid, puts his back to the basket, and he will back you down and do this little baby left-handed hook or do a little up and under and kiss it off the glass. And it is a joy to watch because you don't see it anymore. Yeah. And you're like, oh, man, look at this guy. He's backing him down. He's going to get a little baby hook. And then if he gets doubled, he kicks it out and you got an open three. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. But that inside-outside game does not exist in college basketball anymore, nor in the NBA, really, like you said. And you got 7-footers, Joel Embiid, dribbling down the court and shooting 25-foot jump shots.
Yes.
Yeah.
15 years ago, he wouldn't be taking a shot out of the coach wouldn't let him. He'd be put your butt in the post and you're 7'2" and dunk on somebody. It's just a different game. And I agree with you, Matt. If you can find those guys that want to play in the post and bang like that and you can go inside out, it's a whole different ball game. So
it's probably harder than ever to pick the office bracket pool, and that's why I tell people you better think about this. Look at the rosters if you have time, or you can pay an intern to do it is what you really need to do. But the number of teams that have guys that have played together for 4 or 5 years versus a team that is 70 or 80% first year guys that came in from all over the country doesn't mean they're not talented, but they'll make you miserable in a game. And the number one thing that you've got to do as a coach and as an athlete is you always want to get your opponent outside of their comfort zone. Make them do what they hate doing the most. I know from volunteer coaching 14 years, cross country and track and field. What do y'all hate the most? Hills. I said, okay, we're going to run a lot of hills. And I had a motto, oh, hill, yes. Okay. You've got to master the miserable and what you hate. And if you, and that's coaching. That's why Nolan Richardson was such the 17-year run he had at Arkansas. And you think about now, Coach K's gone. He's not coaching anymore. Duke is not the same. They still have Cameron Indoor Arena. They have everything. But Tommy, how are they going to get back the magic? It's not that easy. Nobody wants to be the guy to replace Nick Saban either. But that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, you're not going to get it back. There's a aura and a mystique. About Coach K and what he did at Duke and the nostalgic and everything else and the atmosphere there. It's just not going to ever be the same. It's just not. And I think Duke fans understand that. Shire's going to be. I heard he's fantastic on the recruiting trail. And I'm sure they're going to bring in good players and do whatever, but he's still not Coach K. When Coach K walked in the room, he didn't even have to say anything, and the players would pipe up and pay attention because he earned that. The young coaches, Shire and Hubert Davis, great coaches, had great careers, everything else, but they haven't earned that mystique about where they are and demanding their attention from the players. So it's not going to be easy for Duke. It's not going to be easy for Carolina. Carolina's got has already got a bunch of big-time recruits coming in for next year. They've got that mystique. If you ever go to Chapel Hill and you get the chance to go to their basketball museum, I hate saying this because, it's against everything, an ounce of blood in my body, but it's so impressive. It's ridiculous. You walk in there and they have a mock draft board up on the wall like you see when the NBA does their draft, and it's all the players that have gone, that played in the what draft numbers they went. And it is like the NBA all-star team every year. It's ridiculous. It's great player after great player after great player. Hard not to get guys to come in there. And then you got to recruit, and all of a sudden you got Michael Jordan picking up the phone saying, hey, come play for us at Chapel Hill or, whatever. It's just there's a lot of power there. So Carolina and Duke will always be good. Will they always be great like they have been for the last couple of years and past couple of decades? I don't think so. I think that ship has sailed, and I think it's going to be an up and down, much like all the other teams. They're going to have good years and bad years.
Yeah, and, we're about to go to a break. We come back, got a few more questions. I know you got stuff to do, but think about when Dean Smith retired. Right. And that's when he got him, had success, but it was like, who was he? And poor guy didn't have a chance. Dean Smith over there, smoking the cigarettes and just that watch ACC tournament, folks. If you have ACC network, and Tommy, I'm sure you know the people that put that together, but Matt, if you hadn't seen it, it will make you absolutely love college basketball. It's everything that we all grew up with. We're going to be right back with Tommy Kane, Matt Dean, Rob Browne after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Tommy Kane, Matt Dean, this basketball stuff is fantastic. And I'm just looking at it, both of y'all as basketball junkies, and listeners are saying the same thing. Guys, we're going to get it back. We have seen cycles before, and I mentioned about when Dean Smith stepped down, North Carolina kind of, even though they were really good, and didn't they get to the Final Four within a few years, but it wasn't Dean Smith. And so it's going to, I guess, similar things going to happen with no Coach K and Roy Williams. I mean, these guys, you're right. There was just something about them. It's a mystique, and you can't just get that by punching a couple of buttons. And but the tradition never graduates from those schools, Tommy.
Oh, of course not. Of course not. I mean, like I said, it's the who's. I mean, Duke and North Carolina have just of course, they're the pinnacle of college basketball for the last 2 decades, and they have been, and they're the measuring stick for every other program in the country outside of maybe the Kentucky a couple of the programs like Kentucky or somebody. But they're and they deserve it. They've won national championships. They're in the mix every year. They get the best recruits, do whatever. But we talked about this on one of the shows a couple of weeks ago, Rob. I think that's one of the reasons. I mean, Coach K was getting old, no question about it. Roy Williams was getting up there in age too, but the people like Jay Wright and those guys in their prime, I think everybody, all those, I think they were really like, excuse my language, but screw this, like this transfer portal NIL stuff. Yeah. I don't want to deal with it. I mean, it's just changed the dynamics of college sports. And, like your guest earlier was talking about, I think maybe we'll learn from it and maybe tweak it and get it back to where it's supposed to be. But I got a lot of problems with it. And I like your ideas of maybe, doing paying the kids later down the road after they get out of college or whatever. But right now it's just a mess. And I agree. Look, in college sports, all the players on your team are trying to rub nickels together just to go out and go out and have a pizza on the weekends with their buddies. Really. Then all of a sudden you got one guy sitting next to you that's making $800,000 in an NIL deal, and you don't have a squat. How are you going to be like your teammate and pull for him? I mean, hopefully you're a good enough person and you understand it is what it is, but that's not the way you're going to be with college kids. It's just not. There's going to be a lot of animosity and a lot of, resentment in the team. And I think it's going to rear its head more than we think it's going to. I think it's going to be a problem for a long time to come.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's going to get fixed quicker than we think too, because I'm against anything that makes college sports more like pro sports. And I love pro sports, but we need to keep college like it is. Matt, you know that every day, whether it's D1, 2, or 3, it doesn't matter. They're student athletes. And Matt, you've got people that at Rhodes, they're not guys in the pre-med program. He ain't going to transfer for 1 year to go somewhere when he's about to get into UT Medical School or UAB or Emory or whatever it is. So that's the challenge that we face, Tommy. But I'm optimistic that the fans are the free market. And again, you're going to see some more of these crash and burns with NIL, and people will say, you can't, I've seen companies pay kids right out of college a lot of money to not really do anything, and it does not work. I mean, anything worth having is worth working for. That's just something that we learn. But Tommy, man, your closing comments real quick. I got one more question. How do people keep up with you and all the great work you're doing? And God, I wish we could get you doing some documentaries on college basketball, the great game that it is, and how popular it's becoming in the deep South, and how important it is that it's good all over the country, because we got to have something to do when duck season's over, because I'm really hurting right now.
Hey, well, I'll tell you what, if you ask me, Rob and Matt, to me, and the greatest time of the year, and I love college football. I love World Series baseball. I love all sports when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah,
but March Madness to me is just get out of bed every morning with a big old smile on my face. Cannot wait to see the games go down. Can't wait to see how my bracket does. Can't wait to pull for my teams and see how it all unfolds. And I mean, if it's, number 11 versus number 5, I'm watching the game. I don't even care if I've never seen the teams play before. It's just an incredible sporting event. I think we can all agree on that. And I just don't want it to be tainted by all this crazy money and portal and all this kind of stuff. And I hope we just figure out, like we were saying earlier, putting guardrails on this stuff, trying to slow it down a little bit and say, well, this isn't quite the way we wanted it to go. Let's back it off a little bit, so that these high school kids are not getting pulled. They already got enough pressure on them. They don't need to be worried about how much money they're making, and they've got to help pay their mom and dad or pay their brothers and sisters to get them college and all that stuff. Look, what is the stat? I forget it now. It's probably higher, but what, 70% of NBA basketball players, once they retire, are bankrupt in the next 5 years. They're broke, and they're making
higher than that.
Yeah, and they can't even control their money, and they've got financial people to help them do it. How do you think a high school kid that gets handed a check for $750,000 is going to do? Come on. We got to start being realistic about this.
Well, wait till we have the first player in a college football playoff game being held out ineligible because he's got problems with the IRS on taxes. That's they say, oh, we'll take care of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Look, the first generation employs, the second enjoys, and the third destroys. That's usually what happens. So if you got all that money, live like you're poor. I mean, every wealthy person that I deal with in my practice will tell you my life was so simple when I had 3 or 4 kids running around the house and we didn't have all this money. Now we got all this money. Everybody treats us differently. And man, you nailed it, Tommy. But your production company, though, how did they get hold of you?
Yeah. Thanks, Rob. So PAC 30 Productions, PACK 30 Productions is my production company based out of Atlanta. Everything from documentaries to commercials to whatever you need. And then all my talent work, you can follow me on Instagram at TommyKane_talent. And my acting and TV hosting career is all over there, and my website as well. So, yeah, thanks. Appreciate you having me on, Rob. It's always awesome. And Matt, great to talk to you, but I always love talking college basketball. As you can tell, I could probably do this until the sun goes down. So.
Hey, we'll do it again next week, man. Go Wolfpack.
That's it, baby. Go Wolfpack. See you guys.
Right. Take care, man. Love Tommy Kane's enthusiasm. He's energetic, and he's what student athlete's supposed to be. We got Bo Carter on here right now. There's movement in the aisles here in Scott Field in Starkville, Mississippi. There's Bo Carter, a 6'3", 212-pound sophomore from Itta, Mississippi, comes to the line of scrimmage. I'm Jack Crystal, John Carrero on the sidelines, the Bulldog Network. John Carrero, what a great one. I'm Matt. Bo Carter was SID at Mississippi State, went to the Big 12 office for a long time. Now a writer for the National Football Foundation, Baseball Writers Association of America, a native of the Quad Cities. Now, Matt being from the Quad Cities, Moline, Bettendorf, Davenport, and Rock Island, the Quad Cities in the South are Sheffield, Tuscumbia, Lawrence, and Muscle Shoals. How about that? Laying down the gauntlet right here at the beginning. But Matt's at Rhodes College, been there 32 years, coaching women's basketball, about 16 years, associate AD. Got a son, was on the staff the last 4 years with Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M, now on the staff with Dan Lanning at Oregon at Outson Stadium. Do they blow duck calls nonstop? No, that would be cool to watch mallards cup up at the 50-yard line. But so just kind of lay the groundwork here. But Matt, Bo is writing a book. I'm reading the first 81 pages of it right now about the tales and stories of Mississippi State athletics. Wow. I don't care what the college is. When you know what goes on behind the scenes in the kitchen, it's really cool, and it makes you appreciate the people that make all this stuff happen.
Well, I was fortunate enough. I was on the show with Bo a couple weeks ago, I think. And man, Bo, I'll just tell you this: as soon as the book is published, you have a customer right here. I will make sure I get an autographed copy from you, and my check's in the mail, brother.
Thanks, man.
And I didn't know we had that Quad Cities connection in common. That's pretty cool.
It's more like the Quad Towns in Alabama.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, it is. And Bo, we're talking about college basketball, with Tommy Kane in the previous segment, who was a walk-on student manager and played basketball at NC State. Grew up, childhood dream. Now, you grew up in Sheffield, Alabama. You had Auburn in Alabama. You went to Vanderbilt. You chose Vanderbilt because of the football program, and I get that. No, you went to Vanderbilt, but you get the landscape down here. Now you're out there. I'll say it, Matt, the Metroplex, Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington. It's ginormous, but you're out there right now. You're at the tip of the spear because the best college basketball conference in America is the Big 12. I mean, this is exciting times right there in the middle of America, flyover country, whatever you want to call it, the heartland of America. I mean, this is a great time to be out there. And I just, people don't realize how many great athletes there are in Texas, not just for football and baseball, but basketball. Go up to Kansas, and Iowa State, TCU, Baylor, Texas Tech. That's a mess right now, and so is Texas because they lost their coach. But how is this happening to where an area of the country with not the greatest population is just kicking butt in basketball?
Well, Matt, a little icing on the cake too. The Big 12 and SMU are going to host the women's Final Four at American Airlines Center in April. So that'll be they'll get a chance. Mississippi State played in it again and got racked by South Carolina after they upset UConn about 6 years ago. So a lot of interest in that. But no, you're right, Rob. Texas always had that great football reputation, but Matt knows this as well. Going back to like the Phi Slamma Jamma days at Houston, even back to Arnett at Texas, 1948 Olympic team. There always has been great basketball, and it was always sort of the interim between football and spring football. But it's you've got really talented kids out here. The tremendous coaches. You high school coaches have stayed at the same place for 30, 40 years and built dynasties or whatever. And Duncanville, the suburb of Dallas, has just been like a powerhouse for years. And they're on probation this year for recruiting players. So,
high school,
it's like the old Southwest Conference stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway,
it's
no, you're right. I mean, really nice facilities. It's basketball is much underrated in Texas. It's been a very viable part of the college scene for years and years.
Well, they got 6-man, 7-man football out there. They don't have anything less than 5-man basketball, do they? Some of those small towns.
And they played six. Rob remembers, or Matt remembers this. The six girl basketball 3-on-3, where the poor defense people never scored a point. They just had block shot.
I didn't know they had a 3-on-3 basketball.
True story, Rob. I didn't mean to interrupt you here, but my first high school basketball job in the state of Iowa, Bo, I show up for the men's practice. The women are practicing before us. And in the state of Iowa, we played 3-on-3, 6-on-6. Gosh, this was in the early 90s still, okay? And you're right. I mean, you had these folks that played just half-court defense, never touched the ball offensively, and then you had people who just played offense. Sign me up for the offensive side, right? I just want to play half court offense the whole game, I think I could have been a much better player. There's no question about that. But in Iowa, we had that for years, Bo, all the way I think to the mid '90s.
I think Iowa was the last school to go away from 6 girls, and I think Pat Summitt raised Kane for about 10 or 12 years. We need to get basketball, 5-on-5 basketball in Iowa. But it's really fun to watch. When I was in college, Rob, Father Ryan was right down the street from Vandy. I think saw a couple of, and they some girl would score 52 points and the team would win 56-50.
That's right.
You get the ball into that one post player or the kid that could shoot. And that was before the days of threes too. So man, they were throwing it in from all over the court.
Yeah. Yeah. And you look at the popularity of college basketball, and when we were talking about 79 or 80 guys weigh in, right at that time, that was the Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, Indiana State versus Michigan State. Kenny Loggins hit "This Is It" with Dick Enberg, and that's when it absolutely became the March Madness. Ray Myers up at DePaul, coached there for 70 years, and then his son Joey for about 50. And you think about Chicago, because Ray Myers was there along the same time Harry Carey was broadcasting the Cubs games, and it was incredible. WGN, you had DePaul basketball, Cubs baseball with Steve Stone and Harry Carey. That was, Mark Aguirre. That's when college basketball went from 32 to the 64. If and I'm going to ask both of y'all as historians emeritus at your respective universities. Prior to that, the 32-team tournament, you go back to, and you referenced this in your book, Tales of Mississippi State Athletics. There's movement in the aisles as we move along to page 82. I got to ask you this, both of y'all. I think Kentucky in 1977 or 78, and Mississippi State had a really good team that year. But Kentucky was the only team at 30-2 to get an NCAA bid. And it was a big deal back then just to get an NIT bid.
Yeah.
Matt, I'll let you lead the way.
Well, Bo, I was going to ask the question on that Kentucky team. Is that the Jack Goose Givens team?
Yes.
So I'm a young kid at that time, and I'll never forget Goose Givens going off. I think it was against Gene Banks from Duke, and maybe in the Final Four. I'm not sure. And they both scored. I thought Goose had like close to 40-plus points. It was just so I can't imagine how many good teams were in the SEC at that time, Bo, that didn't get in the tournament, like Rob alluded to.
And I worked with Bill Foster at the Southwest Conference Big 12, and that game just usually used to stick in his craw all the time because Duke had the really Matt, you're familiar with Rob. They were drawing like 1,500 fans a game and things that hit the skids. And then Bill Foster came in and went to every fraternity and sorority house and begged them to come to the games. And then he really laid the groundwork before Coach K got there. And then they lost a tough game. Great story, real quick story too, Rob and Matt. Mississippi State played the last formal game. They played a couple since then. The women's team played at Memorial Coliseum before they built Rupp Arena in Lexington. And Jack Givens went crazy. They were down by 6 points with like 40 seconds left. Joe Dean Jr. grabbed the microphone next to Jack Crystal and said, "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. We're about to beat Kentucky." I don't know whether Goose Givens heard that, but Kentucky rallied for like 8 points in the last 35 seconds.
Hold those thoughts. We're going to be right back with more. This is great. String music after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House Equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
I'll say something about one of our new sponsors, rumbleboxinggym.com/Midtown Memphis. And Camp Lee, this is the first of 3 of these boxing gyms that she'll be opening. This one's at Union and McLean in Midtown Memphis. The way it's set up is really cool. There'll be 25 weight benches with all your weights, free weights and all. And then in the middle, there'll be group training. Then on the other side, there'll be 25 bags, punching bags. Okay. We all need those when we're watching our favorite team play. Seriously, we really do. I hit one so hard after an Auburn loss one time, it knocked the foundation out and broke the beam and fell on me. 70-pound bag. But I'm not that strong. I'm saying, but we need this. But this is a great activity, man. And they're going to open, should be late March, first week of April or so. But this will be the first of 3 of these locations in Memphis. And boxing is so good for you. It engages both sides of your brain. Use your feet, your hand-eye coordination and all. And you'll be working with other people who are like-minded, just as intense and crazy as you are. But it's a 45-minute workout sessions. That is rumbleboxinggym.com/Midtown Memphis. You need to check them out and join now while there's some really good special rates available, because this is going to fill up quickly. All right. I love what you were talking about, Matt, with, Jack Givens, that 78 Kentucky team. Again, one team from the SEC got a bid to the NCAA tournament. And I remember 89 or 90 when Kentucky was going through the probation and a lot of problems. I think they were 16-12, and they got a bid to the NCAA tournament. And everybody said, why is that? Well, they're Kentucky. I mean, they're going to do whatever they got to do to get them in there because their fans, the Big Blue Nation, will cat Atlanta when they play the SEC tournament in Atlanta. You name it, Nashville, Memphis. They will take over and buy every ticket available. But when we went from – and here's my point I'm making, guys. Everybody's worried about going from 4 teams in the college football playoff to 12. Well, you're just going to have a bunch of blowouts. No, you're not. You're not. The market will adjust. It'll work out. We talked about that. Go back when we changed the substitution rules in football in the late 60s. Alabama will never be able to compete. They've got 180-pound. Jackie Sherrill was on the show with us a couple of days ago, guys. He talked about, Alabama's championship teams in the 60s with 180-pound offensive linemen. I mean, now 180 pounds might be – you may have a couple of guys that weigh 180 before they get in the weight program. I mean, it's unheard of. But you know what? The interest in college football nationwide, I'll guarantee it, is going to explode when you go from 4 to 12 teams. You may think there's going to be a bunch of blowouts. It doesn't matter. Again, it's the St. Peter's win over Kentucky. Not that I wanted them to beat Kentucky because I'm an SEC guy, but that's what draws interest, guys. And are y'all both in favor of expansion from 4 to 12 teams in the college football playoff like you were when they went from 16 to 32, but really 32 to 64? Now, 68, I don't get those 4 teams to play in thing. That's like a made-for-TV drama or something. But are y'all excited about expansion of the college football playoff? Matt?
I'll go first, Bo and Rob. I think in this case, more is better. You look at this year, for example. I mean, I know we had the 65-7 championship game, but look at the 2 semi games. Are you telling me if we would have had 12 this year, we'd have had some phenomenal games leading up to the championship game? It may have been the same result. Heck, Georgia was fortunate to be in the championship game. Let's be honest. Ohio State, after getting run out of their own stadium in the second half against Michigan, gets that bid at the 4 seed and has them on the ropes, and they miss a kick. They outplayed Georgia that day. They did.
Yeah.
They absolutely did. Georgia caught the break, and they won the national championship. And, Bo, TCU, I look at a team that the only team that beat them prior to Georgia was Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game. And then Kansas State gets run out of the house by Alabama. No one would want to play Alabama this year. I mean, I'm going to tell you what, if the 4-5 game would have been on Alabama, Ohio State, my gosh, that would have been a heck of a game. And I promise you, Ohio State wouldn't have had that opportunity to play Georgia because Bama would have beat them. Yeah. I'm just telling you, that's how good they were playing. And I don't know, Bo, I think if you go to Rob, when it was 32, Bo can probably help me with this, but there were increments. It just didn't go from 32 to 64. I think we went 48 maybe, and then we finally got it to 64. So I'm sorry, Bo, go ahead.
No, I was right. Hey, Rob and Matt, I'm with you guys. I want to see the 96. Actually,
that's right.
The next. And somebody had a great point. If you take 256 teams, I think they're like 335 Division I teams.
357 that are eligible. Yeah,
you only have 2 more rounds. So, man, I think CBS and TBS and ESPN would love it. As far as the early round games. But again, I don't. Matt, this might be a problem. My Final Four they always laugh. It would go into the Masters, which CBS would go crazy or whatever.
Yes, that's true.
It would.
I didn't think of that, Bo. That's true.
Put it all on TBS, I guess. But hey, the more the merrier. We used to, Matt, you remember this, Rob, myself. Remember you play state tournaments in Alabama and Tennessee with 300 teams involved, and they got to Tuscaloosa or Nashville after having played about 6 games. So the more the merrier. Hey, it's fun.
Yeah. And that's what I think the biggest concern is in November. How are you going to keep fans in the South or Big Ten country interested in the Civil War, Oregon State? This is a way to do it because in theory, everybody ranked in the top 25 is thinking, hey, man, Dumb and Dumber, would you go out with me? What about a 1 in a million chance? 1 in a million. So you're saying there's a chance. That's what you're going to do to college football fans around the country in November. You're going to keep those eyeballs attached or glued to the TV sets. And it's that Americans love underdogs. Shug Jordan, prior to the Auburn-Alabama game, the Iron Bowl one time, maybe it was in 63, but Auburn was going up there to play, and it was a serious underdog. Maybe that was the 72 game that Auburn won punt, Bama punt. and Coach Jordan said, well, I seem to recall that David was a 40-point underdog versus Goliath. How'd that turn out? Auburn will be ready to play when we get to Birmingham on Saturday, as we always have. And Coach Bryant, he knows we're coming. I mean, that's what we love, isn't it, guys? Trying to do my Shug Jordan with a syrupy black belt of Alabama from Selma as his penchant for loving sugar cane as a young boy. The nickname Shug Jordan, Ralph Shug Jordan Jr. And by the way, Bo and Matt, you're too young to remember this, but I met Paul W. Grist at the YMCA Conference Center, Black Mountain, North Carolina, in May of 1981 at the conference center after dinner, sitting in a rocking chair out on the front porch. And I looked at him. I said, "You're Paul W. Grist. You're Shug Jordan's mentor when he was a youth at the YMCA in Selma, Alabama. You steered him towards sports, athletics, and academics." He looked at me and goes, "Son, how in the hell do you know that?" And my dad looked at him and goes, "Boy's got a vast storehouse of useless knowledge in that brain, but he's an idiot savant, but I love him." Paul W. Grist, and that's the name of the YMCA in Selma, Alabama, where Yan Cowart and Philip Cowart grew up over there. So, why can I remember stuff like this? I don't know. Help me, Bo and Matt.
It's great knowledge, Rob. And you hit the nail on the head about the 12, though. The great thing, and I think Matt will agree, the championship games really take on even more importance now because you've got, well, just look at it. You know, Kansas State beat TCU,
That's right.
but TCU had enough chits there to, you know, with a 12-0 record prior to the championship to make it in.
Yeah.
I think if they kept TCU out, and, you know, I know Saban really, Coach Saban really lobbied hard for Alabama, but that would have been kind of a travesty. Of course, I'm speaking from a biased standpoint a little bit, but they had, I mean, you just look at the overall body of work, and they had to come from behind, I think, 5 times and didn't have a, you know, Rob, you talked about the Big 12 might have been the second or third best conference in the country this year. So, secondly, I was going to, depending on your point of view, but but no, it has a way of working out. And like I said, the championship games are just going to be like, do or die as far as that 12 team.
Yeah, it is. Matt?
Well, I will tell you, going back to, you know, that analogy you used with, you know, we're going to show up in Birmingham. We're going to play. We'll be ready. I worked for a Hall of Fame coach at Rhodes named Herb Hilgeman. And every game we talked about this. It was like, we respect everyone, but we fear no one. Right. And that's a little bit like what you talked about there. We understand we're playing a really good opponent, but we're going to be prepared, and we're going to show up, and we're going to give them heck for however long to the buzzer ends. And another thing, Bo, I thought when we were having this discussion about 12, I thought about the Cotton Bowl this year and what a great game that was. And if you look at Tulane, you look at USC, that had been a heck of a 5-12 or 6-11 matchup right there. And that was one of the better bowl games that we had leading up to the Final Four, right? I mean, obviously it didn't count towards the Final Four, but I mean, college football, what makes athletics so special are these stories like you just told, Rob, that go back to the beginning of time when we started this. Because we learn, you know, I tell people this, is we all go to these clinics as coaches, Bo, and we just steal everything from everybody else, and we try to just do it a little bit better. It's not like anyone we're just reinventing the wheel, so to speak. You know, it's funny because earlier I was going to ask you, I forgot to ask you this question, Bo. Like, we were talking about basketball in the state of Texas. Well, one of the neatest personalities that I've ever seen from afar is a guy named Guy Lewis that coached that 5-slammer team, right? You talk about a unique coach. I mean, I don't know, Bo, you know, you know, where you were in that time frame covering sports, but I mean, Guy Lewis, from what I've heard, they broke the mold. There was not another one like Guy Lewis.
The only other one, and Matt, you and Robert, Abe Lemons, remember?
Yeah,
in Texas.
That's right.
Abe Lemons,
the greatest line of all time. He got fired at Texas. He said, "I want to buy a glass bottom car so I can run over." I won't mention the AD's name, but so I could run him over and then back over again and see the look on his face. Between Abe and Guy, man, with the old Southwest Conference days in the late 70s. Oh my! What you talk about? Just a quote city, and Abe spoke at the Matt will love this. The Crystal Classic, sponsored by Crystal Hamburgers in Chattanooga. Rhodes might have played that. You got a free year's supply of Crystal Hamburger.
Oh, my God.
People laughed people were falling over out of the chairs laughing so hard at his stories, man. It was amazing. I got to get some Abe Lemon stories in that Mississippi State book too. So it's amazing what you would just, Rob, Matt, that was a great part about Al McGuire, the characters that have been coaches, all these years.
We lost Billy Packer
this week too, right? We lost
Billy Packer.
Him and McGuire were just a staple when I was younger, growing up watching the NCAA tournament.
Me too. I mean, and that those, you're right. Those two, Packer, McGuire, Dick Enberg was really good too.
Yeah, the three.
He was fantastic. Yeah, and I think that the people that broadcast these games, they're so special. And the good ones, the great ones, I'll say, know when to just shut up, and you don't need to say anything. Just get a camera, just pan the sidelines. After a great moment in sports, you lose on a last-second shot. You don't need to say, and it goes in. Well, it is. I mean, look, Larry Munson could have taught the course. And for all broadcasters, yes, he never said Lindsey Scott scored in the Florida-Georgia game in 1980, but he did say, Lindsey Scott, Lindsey Scott, Lindsey Scott. And I think you knew that Georgia had scored, but there were people out there that complained, well, he didn't ever say, look, and then when people will say, announcers are supposed to, he's a homer. Well, who signs his check?
That's right.
I mean, Jack Crystal at Mississippi State, Larry Munson, Jim Fife at Auburn, seashells and balloons for the winners, hard coal and rocks for the losers. You can't make the great announcers. That SEC documentary, 30 for 30, more than a voice. It just doesn't get any better. I mean, and that's what 58 years, Jack Crystal and Matt in Bo Carter's book, Tales of Mississippi State Athletics. I'm reading it the other day and I'm just laughing my arse off because he's talking about Jack Crystal and the Mississippi State Network. When they would play down in Gainesville, Florida had a steel press box. It was 183 degrees with the wind chill up in there. He said Jack Crystal and his broadcast partner must have been John Carrero, and they were in the broadcast booth and they closed the door and were just sitting there in their boxers. It was so hot. And when they took a station break, they would take a wet towel and just soak themselves. They were about to pass out. People don't know the kind of stuff. And I remember one time being a spotter for Bob Neal and Tim Foley for the old Turner Broadcast Network Florida State LSU game in 1990 in Tallahassee. Well, Bob Neal used to keep like a big gulp, it was like a 64 ouncer, there between him and Tim Foley with stat sheets, that had the rosters and the lineup. And I got so excited during that game, there was a big fight broke out on the field. And my arms just went waving. And of course, I knocked the old 64-ounce drink all over stuff. And Bob Neal just looked at me and just kind of swept it off and didn't say a word about it during the break. He said, that stuff happens all the time, young man. It's okay. And that was really cool to watch that. But man, you think about these great announcers telling us the stories. You more than a voice, there needs to be more of that coming out. I mean, they could have done a whole thing just on Stan Torgensen and Jack Crystal and Paul Eels at Arkansas. Right after this, we'll be back. Bo Carter and Matt Dean and Rob Browne, Sidelines Friday Roundtable.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, as we continue down here, here's some great information, gentlemen, from our friend Dave Cody, Bo, and he said some great points. Look what expansion to 64 has done for college baseball. It's increased interest in super regionals and the College World Series. You have 16 regionals, 8 supers. Light the tower orange, said Craig Way after Texas won the College World Series with Augie Garrido as head coach. Bo will tell you that really resonated and still does with Texas fans. Yeah. And golly, man, Dave was in Austin 36 years, sports anchor, was around all of it. And that's exactly what's happening with college baseball, basketball. It's about to happen with college football. And I think the timing is really good, guys.
Well, I will tell you this. I want to talk a little bit about baseball quickly and what the College World Series impact has had. I think in the last decade and a half, it's just the coverage has been done really, really well. I had a chance when my son was playing competitive baseball. We made an Omaha trip one summer for the World's. It was 16 and under, I think, at the time. We were with Christian Brothers on a team, and that community up there, what baseball means to that community, and hosting that event, and they moved from I don't know the name, Bo, of the famous stadium, but they moved
Rosenblatt
Stadium. They built a new one, right? They built a new one.
Charles Schwab now.
That's right. We got to have the corporate dollars, but
that's right. Morgan Keegan. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, right. It was TD Ameritrade, wasn't it?
It was.
Then they got outbid by Charles Schwab.
Charles Schwab outbid the Ricketts family.
But we've always had baseball as it's apple pie. What's it? Apple pie, Chevrolet, baseball, whatever.
Yeah.
And now college baseball is just so intriguing to watch with the growth and the super regionals and the Omaha experience. And we were fortunate enough as a family to have some really good friends pitch for Alabama, Friday night starter Jeffrey Bramlett. Shout out to Jeffrey. He's still trying to make it in the majors. But college baseball. SEC Friday night college baseball, Bo, you've probably been to some Friday night games, I can imagine. There's nothing quite like it, man. There's some great tailgating going on. It's terrific experience.
And Matt had a good point too, Rob. Rhodes, formerly Southwestern. And by the way, too, Matt, I got to get that football out. The Mississippi State win in 1932. You'll have to show and tell, get it out of the trophy.
That's right. I have the football was in my office still, Bo. Well, I'm no longer the AD, but I had.
That's right. We'll get you to pull that out next time. But,
yeah.
The great thing about college baseball, you got Union, Rhodes, Lambeth when they play back before Lambeth was open. They would come down and play Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and the fans would just get a ball. You had the parents, the other team, they were like with their eyes wide open playing at Dudy Noble Field or Swayze Field at Ole Miss or whatever. It's a great equalizer, and just it is America's game. I mean, Rob, you've seen. Looking forward to having Butch Thompson on your show. He's got a possible World Series team again this year, so it's in Omaha. Rob, if you haven't been, you got to go. Just go to eat steaks. The heck with baseball, but you can. The atmosphere is unbelievable. Best NCAA championship atmosphere of all.
I would agree.
Yeah, it is, and I like what Matt just said. I mean, you take a Butch Thompson. I just was texting him as you said that about being on. He comes on Saturday mornings with us now the last few weeks, and we'll do it all the way through late June with the College Baseball World Series, and he talks about you can't beat Father's Day in Omaha.
Mm-hmm.
It's magical. And the city of Omaha wraps their arms around the College World Series. And they're so welcoming and they make you want to be there. And they're glad to have you. And, man, the Mississippi State fans, the Ole Miss, the LSU, these fan bases just absolutely take over. I bet you Ole Miss had 20,000 people in Charles Schwab Stadium there when they won the national championship. That was incredible. And that's what we love about college. And I really do think college football is about to experience one of the biggest bumps in terms of growth in revenues and viewership. The game's as good as it's ever been. And it's going to be so big going forward. And I know it's easy to get caught up in all the negativity. Man, you know what? All you got to do is lay in bed and keep hitting the snooze button. Remember that scene at the beginning of the movie Kingpin, one of the great bowling movies of all time? Woody Harrelson kept hitting the snooze thing with that hook on his hand. It's just, if you do that all day, hey, man, that's fine. You want to be negative, or you can get up because you're never going to accomplish anything like that. We're going to get this thing figured out. And talking to everybody we talk to on this show, ultimately it's about history, traditions, and heroes in college athletics. That's why the fans will say, well, golly, we already got pro sports. You will see a shift, a monumental shift going forward. If it gets too crazy to where maybe people just, if the Power 5 schools get so out of hand, people will start watching the mid-majors, whatever. They'll look for that pure form of athletics. I mean, and look, it's a business. I get everything's a business per se. But Matt, Bo being a writer for the National Football Foundation and the Baseball Writers Association of America, it's on y'all, and Ken Capps, our friend, Football Writers Association of America, it's on y'all to tell these stories. That's why journalism, it had been on life support until we started doing this show and bringing back real journalists. I mean, for the most part, with young journalists today, the respirator's on, the priest is in the room, and they're calling the kinfolk to the bedside because they're throwing whatever they can against the wall and hoping that it sticks. God love the journalist, the true grit journalist who says, I'd rather not comment on that, or I don't know enough to speak intelligently on that, if that's possible. But let me hold off. Let me get the information. I'd rather get it right than try to be first. Bo, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, totally. And Matt can attest this. He's seen the total turnaround. The big thing, and everybody's got to get away from, and hopefully, it's really hurt daily newspapers. And I love to sitting here looking at one right now.
Yeah.
But anyway, everybody wants the 15-second CNN hash, rush deal, the short version or whatever, and plus the social media has really ruined a lot of journal. Matt, you probably agree because you get them from fans and parents and everything else. That we've everybody has become a journalist. When I taught journalism at North Texas, I told the kids, I said, the thing that distinguishes you from Joe Blow out there ripping people on Facebook or Instagram or whatever is that you've been trained. Associated Press style. To fact check and everything else. That's the real difference.
Oh, yeah, I mean that's absolutely the truth, Matt. And with social media, or just watch when people send you an email or a text. My brain tells me to indent 5 spaces to the right. Matt, I'm crazy. I can't help it. I've spent a lot of time at 1445 Jackson Avenue at the tavern. My man, Sonny Wilson, served me many a burger and got the cold beer down here, young man, as San Fran Frisco is undefeated. But Matt, you think about that, what Bo just said, getting the newspaper out. If I'm wanting to really dig into a story, I'll print it off and I'll read it where I like to hold things in my hands and I can underline and highlight them. Matt, could you imagine trying to highlight things on your laptop?
I'll also add to what Bo said. Even at our level, 30 years ago, when I first got into the business, we would do media guides that we would produce, and we would sell at games. Even at our level, we would do game day programming, and then all of a sudden we got away from that. Then we started putting it online, and now we don't even do it in some cases. And to me, that's the archival on the history of your college program. If you don't go in there and you go back in that old agate section where I can look back in 1934 and I see Southwestern of Memphis beat Mississippi State. I see that at the back of an old media guide. That's where I get the information. And a lot of people don't notice about me. When I started, I was a broadcast news journalism major in college. I wanted to be Bo Carter. Then I made the mistake of going into coaching. I mean, things happen. Okay, things happen. And I got out of college and I had an offer to go to Mason City, Iowa, to be a sports reporter for like $18,000 a year. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go back to grad school. That salary's not what I expected, right? And got involved in some different things. But I just have so much respect for what Bo does and people in that profession, because I remember working for the Quad City Times, our newspaper where I grew up, and Des Moines Register as a Gannett paper, one of the best papers in the country in the state of Iowa. And, I had a cup of tea with some things with WHO radio when I was in college and a B News major. There's nothing better than looking back at the history of how sports and journalism and media are related. And it makes you a little sad about where we are today in certain aspects because we just don't do it the way we used to do it.
Well, I mean, only an idiot savant like myself knows going up and down, left to right on AM radio dial, listening to games and stations like WHO in Des Moines, Iowa, with Ed Podolak and the Hawkeye Football Network. They're doing the hokey pokey on the field here after this big Iowa win over the Wisconsin Badgers. Da-da-da-da-da-da. That's what it's all about. They would sing. Matt, you know what I'm talking about.
I do. And honestly, like Podolak is just a fixture. He played football for the Hawkeyes. I think played Kansas City Chiefs, who was professional, and he's still doing the color commentary today with Gary Dolphin, our announcer. And those things stick with you. They stick with you because those personalities are what draws you to the university, in my opinion. Professors are what help us get degrees, and they're brilliant. But when you turn on that radio dial, there's nothing like painting a picture from a really good play-by-play radio broadcast.
Yeah, they're the artists. I mean, they absolutely can paint the picture, tell you what's going on. As Jack Crystal said, his mentor taught him constantly give people time left in the game, the score, and the big picture. He goes, with 7:21 to go in the ball game, Mississippi State beats Alabama 6-3 with 12 seconds left here in the third quarter. We'll be back with more after this quick message from one of our sponsors, Ayoup's on the Square, Cantone, Mississippi. I mean, it's to this day, I still think it's Cantone. It's Canton. Because I heard Jack Crystal, James Shimon, one of my friends, who's a Mississippi State grad. Everybody that you. Jack Crystal retired in 2011?
I think so.
Larry Munson retired in 2008. Scott Howard's been doing Georgia football with Neil Hondo Williamson and our friend Lauren Smith on the Georgia pregame network for 15 years. Of course, Larry started as America's first sidelines reporter in 1972. But it doesn't get any better than Larry Munson. He goes, 1:21 left to go in the ball game. Let's go down there quickly on the sidelines. Lauren, what do you got? Well, Larry, I tell you, Florida just running the ball over here on this side of the field. Georgia's going to have to pull a miracle. Something quickly going to have to happen. Ballou lined up at his own 7-yard line. Dogs desperate to go the length of the field. He's going to hit Lindsey Scott. Lindsey Scott. I mean, I'll never forget him telling that story. He goes, and after the deal, he goes, I broke my chair, a metal chair, broke it through. And the stadium collapsed. Now they're going to have to build the whole new stadium. He goes, man. He goes, think about all those dog people up there on St. Simon's and Jekyll Island renting those condos for 4 and 5 days. Man, is some property going to be destroyed tonight? And, nowadays, I mean, I think a lot of people are afraid of their own shadow. Tell it like it is. Right. And hey, Matt, and to everybody, if you're a Mississippi State fan or not, you need to, that when Bo publishes this book, I'm going to tell you something, man. I'm going to get the people at rumbleboxinggym.com/Midtown Memphis to have copies of it there in the middle. Read it. It'll just remind you, people say, well, are you living in the past? No, it's the past, the present, and the future. Tradition never graduates. Okay. We're here because of people that came before us, okay? We ain't the only people that ever walked this earth. But Matt, when you start reading these stories and you read about, I want to get Larry Templeton on this show. He's the longest tenured AD, Matt, in SEC history, 1987 to 2007 at Mississippi State. And you talk about a fundraiser, Matt. Bo talks about this. Before the SEC was just hemorrhaging with money in a good way. Larry Templeton went out and built Dudy Noble Field. He got those facilities going when it was harder than H to bring in money. It's just people need to be reminded of what it took to get where we are today. And Bo, your book, let's get that. Hurry up now. Come on, let's go.
That's right. I got to get photos, Rob. I'm putting you in charge of that.
I know. But you just think about that. Stories about your play-by-play guy while they were sitting there in their boxers. They were so hot during the game. Nobody knows this. Could you imagine those stories? But that right there is a 30 for 30 documentary. I know some documentary filmmakers like Tommy Kane, who was on just before then. Those stories need to be archived into a vault. Like, Matt's remembering. And my dad always reminds me, he goes, boy, Southwestern used to be a hell of a football team. They beat Mississippi State back in 34. He's listening right now at age 94. He remembers that. I mean, of course, Crump Stadium in Memphis used to have the doubleheader. Ole Miss would play Tennessee, and Memphis would play Mississippi State. Doubleheader at Crump Stadium.
Wow.
I said one time Mayor Crump was so powerful in Memphis that the Bears and the Packers had a preseason game at Crump Stadium. And Mayor Crump would always come with his entourage and walk around the track, the entire stadium, just to let people know he was there. So one time he and his entourage were late getting there, and they made him, after 3 minutes into the game, they made him do the kickoff again from Mayor Crump. Great show, everybody. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Don't give to get, give to give out of the goodness of your heart. And folks, we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Be proud of where you are. Never apologize for American exceptionalism. And I'm going to tell you what, we'll be back on tomorrow. Batting leadoff is a 6'2", 211-pound junior from Amory, Mississippi, Coach Butch Thompson. Until then, have a great day. We are out of here.